welcome to have Aaron Portzline on the live line. Of course, he follows the Jackets for The Athletic. And Aaron, I know Dave Metzold calls you Porty, so I'm just going to call you Aaron.
Yeah, rock on.
I'll tell you what, I just want to start really wide because there's so many new people that are now following the Jackets after that sweep of Tampa Bay. You have been following this team since its inception. You're a deep, deep dive guy when it comes to hockey. Tell me something about the Blue Jackets that nobody knows. You got to know a nugget about someone, something. Just break the thing loose this morning. Give me a nugget about something that you don't think anybody else knows about this team.
Wow, talk about being put on the spot, right? What does nobody... I mean, I think people around these parts know that there has been, long years of them not making it. I mean, the one thing that blows me away after that first round is that they had never won a playoff game by more than a goal. So even individual playoff games had been massive, huge Herculean struggles, which is what made the game 2, the game 3s, the 5-1 scores just scratch your head. I don't know if the newcomers realize that the team that they swept in the first round swept them in the regular season 3 games by a score of 17-3. I mean, what happened in that first round? I think people are trying to get their arms around it. I just don't know if you can, because it's such a stunning result in not just that the Blue Jackets won, but they took out one of the historically great regular season teams in this league.
And Aaron, you know it as well as anybody, but the pace of play in playoff hockey versus what you see in the regular season, I mean, is it up like a notch or 2 or 10? It's crazy how fast that puck flies around.
It is, and it's different in the sense that when you start to play a team over and over again, there are certain elements of your game that can be exposed. There are certain strengths of your game that have sort of a cumulative effect. Josh Anderson is a different player when you've seen him 2 games in a row, 3 games in a row. You just get tired of seeing that guy, and it wears down on you. And I think this team, the Blue Jackets, may be built to be effective in that series-type style of setting rather than individual, more so than individual games.
Yeah, Aaron, take me through that, because you were talking about how historic the season was for Tampa Bay. And since the dust has settled on that series, if you look at the national narrative, there's articles, what happened to Tampa Bay, greatest collapse ever. Watching the series, was it more of, gosh, Tampa Bay disappeared, their 340 goal scorers barely did anything until Game 4, Vasilevsky didn't play well? Was it more their collapse, or as you watched it, was it more the Jackets were just better? What did you think?
Well, I think Columbus kicked their you-know-what. I don't think none of this was a fluke, right? I do think there's shock that Tampa didn't adjust better, that they had such trouble getting through the Blue Jackets' forecheck. What Columbus did wasn't unique. It wasn't this new wrinkle, this new aspect of the game that no one's thought of before. It was a pretty straightforward thing. They just did it really, really well. I think both things can coexist. I think if a team that wins 62 games in the regular season and loses in the first round, it's a choke. But I don't think anybody could watch that series and say that Columbus didn't play really, really well. And I think people are starting to take a different look at the Blue Jackets in terms of their outlook the rest of the way here, in maybe a surprising way to people.
Okay, now if you ask John Tortorella or anybody, you're going to get the same answer. We don't care who we play next. But as you look at the Toronto-Boston series, and obviously Boston regular season a much better team, but is there a style of play that you feel, whether if you were a Blue Jacket fan, would you be rooting for Toronto or Boston based on style of play, matchup, or whatever? What do you think?
Well, it's funny. I spoke to a lot of people around the league about that yesterday, and it's almost unanimous that Columbus matches up much better against Toronto than they do Boston. Toronto is sort of a Tampa light, skilled, quick. You can push them around. Of course, Columbus would. And the other aspect that would be huge coming out of this is if Toronto does survive that first round, they're going to be battered and bruised by Boston. And the series will start really quickly, this second one. So they may have a day, maybe 2 days maximum to regroup and start to play Columbus, which, of course, by then will be very well rested.
Yeah, and when you talk about that very well rested, I think a lot of people are going to be looking right in goal, right in net, looking at Bob. What is the difference this year in the playoffs? Because in the past, it's always been about Bob lets one sloppy one in a game, and that's why we don't advance. And this year, dude is getting it done.
Yeah, that's really, I wrote about this yesterday, just a huge aspect of that first series. You go back to early second period of game one, and it's weird to think of a 4-game sweep as having a really pivotal moment, but the Blue Jackets are down 3-0. He has two of the premier players in the league, Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos, right in front of him, no other support, and he makes just an unbelievable save on Kucherov to keep it at 3-0 and really facilitate the comeback. Honestly, I go back to the end of that first period, and you're making a mental note saying, look to see which goaltender comes out to start the second. Do they say, we're not going through this again with Bobrovsky, we're going to make the switch to Korpisalo? They stuck with Bobrovsky. Huge decision, because that guy really helped them come back in game one and was absolutely, it looks like a world-class goaltender now in the postseason where he has not before.
Jackets, obviously, Aaron played phenomenal. Everybody that got in the lineup played great, but they also were dealing with some injuries. I mean, Marcus Nudavara on the hit in game number 2 didn't play. Adam McQuaid's been out. Obviously, Ryan Murray's been out since February. With this extra time, are we going to see some of these guys, some of these defensemen that have been injured getting back into the lineup? What do you think with the extended time prior to the second round? Is it time for some of these guys to get healthy?
Yeah, that's a huge benefit. And Nudavara is the guy that's been a real lift for them late. Not sure where McQuaid or Murray stand. Apparently Murray has seen some good days here in the last couple of weeks and could. I don't think they've given up on him playing this season. Another name to keep in mind is the player that could be joining them here in a couple of days from Russia, Vladislav Gavrikov, whose team in Russia just got bounced from the playoffs a few days ago. He's a guy that they tried to bring over here 2 years ago. They have believed him to be NHL ready for a couple of seasons. He is going to join the team, and I won't be surprised at all if he plays. So there's support on the way on the back end as well.
Okay, Aaron, good stuff. And I thank you for sharing the nuggets. Good information. Hopefully you can do it again when the Jackets win series number 2.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Aaron Portzline, follow him at The Athletic. There he is on News Radio 610 WTVN.